The doctor told him he can live longer by drinking young blood. Chief Onuka was a man who had everything: a mansion with 10 bedrooms, a beautiful wife and 2 children, cars that never used, properties across states. He was once a poor orphan, but worked his way up through risky businesses and government deals. Now in his 70s, he sat in interviews on television with the aura of wealth, talking about his journey. In one of his interviews, a journalist asked him a question. "What's your biggest fear?" she asked. He smiled first, but the smile faded. "Dying," he said. "Dying and leaving all this behind." That clip went viral. Some laughed, others pitied him, but someone else watched it very closely. Dr. Bello ran a small private clinic on the outskirts of the city. He was once a respected medical researcher, but after being exposed for unethical trials on sick children, he lost his license. He left the city for a while, but came back under a different name. The doctor saw Chief's fear as a chance, not to help him, but to use him. He sent Chief an email with no official seal, no address, just a simple message. "I can give you more time, real time, strength, youth, but the process is delicate. Reply if you're serious." Chief ignored it at first, but at night, when sleep refused to come, when his body reminded him of its limits, he replied. Their first meeting was in secret, inside a gated compound in a developing neighborhood. Dr. Bello told Chief he had discovered something few doctors had the courage to explore. He said the key to longevity was in the blood, but not just any blood, young, fresh blood. He said when transfused in small amounts regularly, it could slow aging and give strength back to dying organs. He showed Chief fake research papers and twisted medical terms. Chief didn't ask too many questions. All he wanted was to live longer. The doctor assured him he could get what he needed quietly, without noise. He just needed the Chief's protection and financial support. Not long after, young people started vanishing from the town of Ikaro. At first, it was a single boy from the local market. Then, 2 girls disappeared on their way home from school. Families reported the cases, but the local police didn't seem to take them seriously. They suggested they might have run away or been trafficked by criminal gangs operating in the region. But the disappearances didn't stop. Every week, someone new was gone. Some victims were students, some apprentices, and others were simply on their way to work. Parents and relatives searched, hung posters, and pleaded for help. But no one returned or listened. In the shadows, Chief Onuka was benefiting from their pain. Every blood transfusion Dr. Bello performed left him stronger and more confident. He started attending business meetings again. His energy returned, and people marveled at how youthful he looked for a man in his 70s. Not that the blood worked, but his brain makes him believe it does, and then it reflects on his physical appearance. But one man, Sergeant Deo, noticed the pattern others ignored. He was a young police officer in his early 30s, working quietly at the district station. While reviewing reports, he realized that most disappearances were happening in areas connected to Chief Ogbuka's businesses, factories, warehouses, or transport routes owned by him. Dayo brought his concerns to his superiors, but they brushed him off. The chief was too powerful, they said, and accusing him without solid proof could cost him his job or worse. Frustrated, but determined, Dayo began a personal investigation. He started by collecting all the missing persons files and marking the locations on a map. The pattern was clear now. The disappearances were clustering around properties owned by the chief, but it wasn't enough evidence to make an arrest. One evening, Dayo's sister, Ellie, didn't return home from work. At first, he thought she might be with friends, but when her phone went unanswered for hours, panic set in. Dayo searched the usual places, called everyone he knew, but there was no sign of her. The next morning, he went to his boss and demanded that they launch a search operation, but his boss gave the same dismissive answer he had given countless parents. Give it time. She will return soon. Dayo knew better. He suspected Ellie had been taken by the same network responsible for the other disappearances. He went back to his map. The last place Ellie was seen was a bus stop near one of Chief Onuka's abandoned warehouses on the outskirts of town. Dayo decided to act. Dayo understood he couldn't just storm the warehouse alone. He needed proof strong enough to bring down both the chief and Dr. Bello. He reached out to a journalist he trusted, Sandra, who had been following the missing persons cases. He shared his suspicions and asked her to help gather evidence. Together, they set up a plan. Sandra posed as a parent of a missing child and tried to get information from sources connected to Chief Onuka's staff. Meanwhile, Dayo began conducting surveillance on the warehouse. He hid in nearby bushes at night, watching trucks go in and out. One night, he saw something that confirmed his worst fears. A van with tinted windows arrived at the warehouse. Two armed men got out and dragged out three young people bound and gagged, one of them his sister Ellie. Dayo's hands shook as he watched them disappear into the building. He knew he couldn't act alone, but he also couldn't wait any longer. Dayo contacted Sandra and asked her to send the information they had gathered to the National Anti-Trafficking Agency, NATA. The journalist complied, forwarding video clips of the abducted victims, vehicle license plates, and the suspicious connection to Chief Onuka's businesses. NATA, which had been monitoring trafficking networks across the country, finally took notice. They authorized a covert operation, but warned Dayo not to tip off anyone in the local police force. Too many were loyal to the chief. That night, a joint task force of NATA officers and federal police surrounded the warehouse. Dayo was allowed to join because of his connection to the victims. They moved in silently, cutting the power to the building. Armed officers stormed through the doors, shouting commands. Inside, they found Dr. Bello's secret lab, tables covered in surgical instruments, bags of blood in refrigerators, and terrified young victims tied to beds. Dayo rushed through the rooms until he found Ellie. She was weak and pale, but alive. He untied her and carried her out as tears streamed down his face. Dr. Bello tried to escape through a back exit, but he was caught before he could reach his car. Chief Ogboka, who had come to the warehouse for his scheduled transfusion, was dragged out in handcuffs, shouting that he was innocent. The officers recovered dozens of pieces of evidence, records of transactions, fake medical research, and names of other victims. The arrest sent shockwaves through the entire region. For years, Chief Onuka had been seen as untouchable. Now, the news showed him and Dr. Bello, sitting in the back of a police van, faces hard with shame. Interviews with the rescued victims revealed the scale of the crimes. Dr. Bello had been harvesting blood and organs, selling them to international buyers, and using the chief's wealth and influence to cover it up. Chief Ogboka faced multiple charges of kidnapping, murder, and trafficking. Dr. Bello faced the same, plus charges of illegal medical experimentation. They were both sentenced to life imprisonment.